It's Tutorial Tuesday. It's an open forum for you to ask me any questions you'd like about being a photographer, being self-employed, or doing this for a living. Go ahead and ask away down there. Standard disclaimer first. While I do shoot Canon products, I am not paid to promote their product. In fact, I'm not paid to promote anything. So the answers that I give you are my own opinions. What you want to do here is just head down to Costco, Walmart, Sam's Club, whatever. Pick up one of those kit cameras for about $500 to $1,000, even get it off of Amazon.com. You're looking for a camera that has multiple lenses. By purchasing one of these kit cameras, you can expect as a beginning photographer to have this for, I would say, about 3 years. It's a good learning curve, get you used to using the camera, taking on and off the lenses, and going through your creative modes. The other option is buying used equipment, and there's multiple websites that you can go to. One of them right off the bat is KEH.com, and they sell used equipment that you can buy at a decent price. The final option here is renting. So you can go to, if you're remote, you can go to places like borrowlenses.com or lensrental.com, and you can rent at a low cost professional level equipment and see what it's like. Thank you so much for your compliment. I really do appreciate that. And I know it sounds cliche because I type that almost to everybody, but I really do appreciate it. Thank you. As far as clients go, I'll get into that next video. As far as acquiring our clients, we started our business 10 years ago, and there is no marketing like shoe leather marketing. And what I mean by that is getting out the door, shaking hands, and giving out business cards. If you want clients, you honestly just have to get out the door. You have to shake hands, you have to give out your business cards, you have to let people know who you are. If you don't do anything, you'll get nothing. You might live in a rural area where going out the door means your next neighbor is about 15 miles away from you. In that case, if you have the internet, that's your door. Open that door and use it to your advantage. I love talking about this because it's fundamental to being a small business owner, and I'll give you an example. My workshops are held out in South Dakota, out on the DX Ranch with the South Dakota Cowgirl, aka Jen Zeller, and I'll tag her here. Where Jen is at is very remote, but if Jen hadn't reached out and we hadn't connected online, I wouldn't be holding the workshops out where she's at. So it's another example of just being able to reach out and using the tools that you have to your advantage. This is a really good question. Thank you so much for asking it. It's the part of photography that outside of just being out there and shooting and having a good time, this is the fulfillment part, and this is where the rubber meets the road. So we'll go into a couple different areas here. The first option here is using an online host. So somebody like maybe Squarespace or Zenfolio or SmugMug or one of these places that'll host your website, and they also have online galleries that you can put all your pictures in. One of the advantages to using Zenfolio or SmugMug is you can post all the images to a client gallery and you can set your own pricing. You have options to set your price list, and then you can really be hands-off in the ordering process. Those website providers like Zenfolio, SmugMug, Squarespace, Wix, you name it, there's a variety of them. They all have a back-end printer, and what I mean by that is they'll use somebody else for fulfillment of the prints. The final advantage here is there's no upfront money from you. So you're not paying another lab to make prints and then getting money from your client to fulfill that order, or vice versa. You're not getting money from your client and then fulfilling an order. They're doing it on their own. The second option is using a commercial print lab, and these are the labs that specialize specifically to photographers. So they don't do anything else. They don't cater to consumers. They're only there for professional photographers. There's one lab that I've found over 10 years that produces consistent quality, and that's White House Custom Color. I trust them completely. I know that when I drop ship an order to a client, it is going to be perfect. White House Custom Color. I'm not paid or sponsored by White House to tell you this information. What I'm telling you is my experience over the last 10 years, and these people are the only ones that are able to take my creativity, put it on paper, and actually represent what I did. Now, the practical part of this is using a commercial lab like this. There's White House Custom Color, there's Bay Photo, there's Miller's Professional Imaging, and there's a handful of others. But those three will get you where you need to go, and they cater only to professionals. So when you use these guys, what you have to do is pay for your order up front. So that means you either have to get money from your client up front and pay for that when you place the order, or you invoice your client after you place the order. When it comes to either using somebody like Zenfolio or SmugMug or one of these website providers versus a commercial print lab like White House, what it comes down to really is your business model. I invoice a lot of my clients, so that works for me. The last thing here is go out and buy a printer and print the images yourself. It's not something that I'm interested in doing. There's professionals that do that, just like I didn't build my studio myself. I'm going to pay a professional to do it. You know, being self-employed, being a full-time photographer, I've seen some of the highest highs and absolutely some of the lowest lows, but it's a quality of life I would never, ever go back to be a papered employee for. Transitioning out of a full-time job for me was not something where I had to make X amount of money and then I would transfer out. For me, it was more about seeing the trend, so I'd monitor deposits monthly, weekly, and just see the trend over a few years. Being here so many years later and being able to share with you guys what it's like to be self-employed it's a lifestyle. It's not, I hesitate to say it's work because it's not really work. It's just your life day in and day out. Transitioning out of a full-time job like that is scary, and it should be scary because we're brought up to be safe. We're brought up to get our biweekly paychecks automatically deposited or get our insurance, all this stuff. I say F safe. And here's a final thing on making that transition. It's not as much about money as you might think it is. It's more about support. Support from those that you love, support in that you're doing the right thing, support that you'll go out every day and do it. I just wanted to share this message that I got this morning from another business owner. And those of you that are thinking about being self-employed, going on to that entrepreneurship, one thing that you'll learn really quickly is the support that you get from other business owners. A couple tips come to mind. Number one, use a tripod. If you want to maintain that clarity and shoot at lower ISOs in a low light environment, then you're going to need to be steady. Number two, use some lights. I've talked to a lot of people over the years about those that are afraid to shoot at high ISOs, like say over ISO 1600. Not me. I'll shoot at 64, 12,000, whatever it takes to get the shot. And that's the key here, get the shot. This question's pretty easy because I won't have a camera in my hand. I'll probably have an adult beverage in my hand, so no settings required. The next question asks if I have a rule for estimating my aperture based on subject distance, and the quick answer to that is I don't. I shoot within an aperture range, meaning I shoot between f4 and f8. Generally don't like shooting wide open. There's a handful of variables that will determine what our depth of field is. One of those is our f-stop, another is the lens focal length, and another is the subject distance. There's also one more, and that's your camera, whether you're shooting full frame or a crop sensor. For my style of photography, what I prefer is f4 to f8. That's what makes me happy with sharpness in my images. How did I develop my clientele when I first started out? The first thing that comes to mind is this. See that pile of crap back there? I wasn't afraid to get into crappy jobs as long as I could build a relationship out of it and seeing beyond that. You'll hear all the time, don't shoot for free. I'm not on that bandwagon. In fact, I say shoot for free if you can develop a relationship out of it, and especially if you're just starting. I had no problem with that. Things don't have to be equal, but they should be equitable. This is a really good question too. How do you network yourself to find your ideal clients? First, when I started out, what I wanted to do was get to know my local photography community. So who's shooting? Who's out there on the landscape right now? What that did for me was establish myself within the photography community so that if there was ever an opportunity where I could take a job from another photographer or get referred by a photographer, not take a job, but get referred by a photographer, I could. The final comment on this question is my wife and I started our business 10 years ago, and it's a continual process. It's not doing one thing, it's doing multitude of things. I've tried those online resources like Thumbtack. It's a waste of time. Just wanted to say thank you very much for everyone that sent in their compliments. I really appreciate hearing those, and I really appreciate you taking the time to send them. My tutorials are for the everyday photographer, and I hope you enjoy them. You can get Lightroom and Photoshop from Adobe for about, I think it's $10 a month. for the subscription, I do the next one up, which is all the Adobe apps. I think that's about $50 a month, but yeah, just do it. 100% of my images go into Lightroom, and of those, another 30% go on into Photoshop. I've used the software for nearly 10 years, and I'd recommend it. Yeah, sure. It's a DSLR, and again, what I'm getting at by recommending those lower-end DSLRs is getting used to handling it, getting used to taking off and putting on lenses, getting used to the creative modes. I'm not in the camp of one manufacturer is better over another. In fact, I've just invested so much money into my Canon products that it's impractical for me to switch now.